Well, tomorrow is June 1st, Acadiana, and that is the signal of the beginning of hurricane season. And here is my briefing on what I think is going to be happening as we head into the year. But first off, let's take a look at what's occurred just over the last 30 years with respect to tropical storms and hurricanes that have come within distance of affecting Acadiana and Lafayette, within 500 miles of Lafayette, just since 1988, including 2018. And you can see lots of lines crossing the northern Gulf of Mexico and a lot of activity not only across Louisiana but the Texas coast on eastward into the northern Gulf Coast of the Gulf of Mexico. So we know, statistically speaking, we're not foreign to tropical storms and hurricanes. On average, we see a tropical storm once every 2 years, a hurricane once every 3 to 5 on the Louisiana coastline, and 4 out of every 10 hurricanes that hit the Louisiana coast are major storms. And we have been overdue, statistically speaking. The last storm striking the Louisiana coast was Hurricane Isaac back in 2012. So here's the forecast for this year, and these numbers mean really nothing to us because it only makes a difference if there's a storm striking our area to make it a bad season. So Dr. Philip Klotzspaw is going for 13 named storms. We can cross one out since we've already had subtropical storm Andrea. He's going for about 5 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes, and citing El Nino as the main mitigating force in the total number of storms. NOAA's forecast issued about 6 weeks later, last week, indicating anywhere between 9 to 15 named storms. 4 to 8 could become hurricanes, and up to 2 to 4 could be major hurricanes. But we cannot tell you where these storms may or may not strike. So here are the forecast factors going into this year. Weak El Nino expected to persist, increasing shear, especially across the Caribbean, which could reduce the total number of storms and also lessen some of the intensity of the storms. But El Nino also leads to below normal shear in the northern Gulf of Mexico, so it's more conducive to either rapid storm development or storm development will be enhanced as a possible disturbance gets into the central and northern part of the Gulf of Mexico. And over the last 10 to 20 years, the Gulf of Mexico over the last several years has been running 1 to 3 degrees above normal of that 10 to 20 year period. So this is El Nino here. It's warmer waters in the eastern equatorial Pacific. It produces more storminess there, so that shoots upper level winds, especially across the Caribbean and across portions of the Atlantic. So if we were to see development, we'd be looking for development out here and then perhaps curving to the north and east. But if something slips through here, there's always a 1 to 2 week window where these El Nino winds will weaken and allow storms to come in. Remember, Hurricane Audrey, Hurricane Andrew came in during El Nino years. So what does this mean for us? Well, let's take a look first off at what an El Nino pattern does. And it's a weak El Nino, but it produces more shear, so the storms can't get growing nicely and have nice outflow. They're sheared, so this disturbs the storm and you don't have a uniform flow. But if you have a La Nina pattern or are in an area of low shear, as we might be in the northern Gulf of Mexico, storms can breathe better, squalls can better organize, and circulations develop more readily. So that's what we look at when we're talking about the El Nino, and the northern Gulf Coast is always a wild card. So the zone to watch this year will be the northern Gulf Coast. This means storms can develop on short notice. Just think of Hurricane Michael last year. 72 hours before Michael was a Category 5. It was just a tropical storm. The year before, you look at Hurricane Harvey. 44 hours before Harvey made landfall as a Category 4 storm, it was only a tropical depression. So this is my forecast, nobody else's. This is where we need to watch this year. Again, especially for storms that may threaten the Gulf Coast, the Bay of Campeche, western Gulf of Mexico, northern Gulf of Mexico, and then over toward the east coast of Florida and along the southeast U.S. And what I will be looking for is potential systems. They could be frontal boundaries that drop something here and then they move to the west, or we have a frontal boundary that comes down across the Gulf of Mexico and we get something developing, or we can have something in the Pacific that crosses over into the Bay of Campeche and then moves northward. So that's my hurricane forecast for this date, May 31st, 2019. Be prepared and prepare equally for each and every hurricane season, because we can't tell you where the storms are going to go, but we can guarantee there will be storms in the Atlantic Basin this year. We'll keep our fingers crossed.